When you've finished writing your case study, proofread it, edit it, proofread it again, get friends or colleagues to read it as well, and proofread it one more time before you submit it for publication. I've seen many case studies submitted to journals that are full of typographical errors, spelling mistakes, and they just get returned to the author straight away because they're just not up to standard. So make sure that you're very happy with the quality of the work before you submit it. When you are ready to submit it though, it can be quite a daunting process to go through this whole publication submission. Usually to submit a case study for publication, this will be done through an online portal, but depending on the journal, sometimes it can be just through an email to the journal's editor. If you submit your case study to a good quality journal, which I would recommend that you do, it will be peer reviewed, and it's highly unlikely they will accept it as it is. Also, be prepared to have your case study rejected before even going out to peer review. Some journals simply don't publish case studies, and others won't publish one unless it is truly unique and makes a considerable contribution to the literature. If it does make it to peer review, the editor will either reject it after receiving feedback from the reviewers, or they will ask you to modify your manuscript based on reviewer feedback, or very rarely they will accept it for publication with no changes to be made. Getting reviewer feedback can be somewhat frustrating at times. Depending on the nature of your case study, the reviewer may just purely disagree with your philosophical stance in providing care, or they may disagree with the diagnosis that's provided or some of the choices that you've made, or even the words that you're using, particularly within chiropractic. When it comes to certain words that can be somewhat polarizing, this can be a case of butting heads with a reviewer. Sometimes you need to choose your battles. Sometimes you can just stick to your guns if you really disagree with what the reviewer is saying. I've had some case studies where I have submitted it to a journal. I've been happy with the quality of the case study, and a reviewer has disagreed with the direction I've gone down. I've refuted what they've said. They don't back down, and then it's up to the journal editor to say whether or not they will back their reviewer or they're happy with the changes that the author has made. Most of the time, the journal editor will back the reviewer. So it may be, even after going through all of the process of submission, potentially doing edits to your manuscript, addressing reviewers' comments, it may still be that you withdraw your case study from that journal and submit it elsewhere. In general, though, if the editor gets back to you and says that they would like you to make minor or major changes to the manuscript, that will usually mean that their intention is to publish the manuscript because they see a way forward for it. With that being the case, it purely comes down to whether or not you can address the reviewer's comments appropriately, get their tick of approval, and then the editor will most likely publish your case study. Once it is accepted for publication, it can actually take several months before it comes out in print. These days, many journals do online publication or a combination of online and the traditional hard copy. So sometimes publication time is much quicker than it used to be, but I have had some case studies that have been accepted for publication and then they haven't come out in print or online for 6 to 12 months or even longer. I've had case studies that I'd completely forgotten about, and then one day I see them in a journal. So this isn't quite so common these days because there's so many more choices with journals to submit to. But do be prepared to have a considerable wait from acceptance through to publication. So now to summarize and review the take-home messages. What I suggest you do is ask yourself these questions before writing your case study and double check that you have ticked these boxes when you do write it. Think about the abstract. Does the abstract provide an accurate description of the case and its implications? Up to 2/3 of abstracts contain inconsistencies when compared to the body of the paper. so double check this before you submit it. Is the case really unique or uncommon? Have many similar case reports been published? Have any high-level studies been published that investigate this topic? If so, it may be unnecessary to write another case report, so do think about this before you even start. Have you adequately reviewed the literature? Remember, a case report literature review should not be comprehensive. It doesn't have to be huge, but it should point out the most current research on the topic, and references should mainly come from reputable peer-reviewed journals, and you should show that you know your way around the topic, you know your background with this topic, and you can place your case study within the literature that's already out there. Have you provided a rationale for reporting the case presented that effectively highlights its importance? In other words, did you present a convincing argument for why the case report is justified? I've seen many case reports where I've read them and I have thought this just doesn't add to the body of literature. There is absolutely no point in publishing this. For example, a case report of a standard response to chiropractic care related to low back pain. That just wouldn't add to the literature considering all of the RCTs that have already been done. Was the case adequately described in the case description section? Did you cover the patient's health history, examination findings, diagnosis, treatment or care, and outcomes fully? Have you fully described them? This section should remain concise but still contain relevant information that helps the reader to understand the presenting complaint, the patient's background, and the relevant outcomes. Another chiropractor should be able to reproduce the care in one of their own patients based on the information provided if they choose to do so. Were the outcome measures suitable for the given clinical circumstances? Outcome measures should be quantifiable and not vague. Like I said, many chiropractic case studies are let down by reporting inappropriate outcome measures based on poor clinical records. So make sure you have adequate clinical records before you even start writing. Did you present convincing evidence in support of the diagnosis? You should present compelling evidence that supports the diagnosis that was given. Differential diagnoses that were considered should be presented, and the author should state why they were eliminated. Did you point out the study's limitations? All case reports have limitations. You should acknowledge these, and alternate explanations should be presented where appropriate. For example, natural progression, placebo effects. There may be many different explanations to explain why the patient changed the way they did when they were receiving chiropractic care. Did you make suggestions for future research? A case study generally paves the way for further research. So did you suggest the most appropriate methods to use to further investigate the topic? Was enough evidence presented to support your conclusions? Conclusions should be logical and should not contain any unsupported statements. They should be based on the limitations that are inherent in a case design and not make unsupported claims about the effectiveness of the intervention that were used. Far too often, conclusions that are submitted from a case study claim that the intervention was effective in the treatment or care of the patient, and you can't say that based on the case study design. And so often, conclusions are just too far-reaching considering the limitations that are inherent in a case study. If you can tick off all of these boxes, if you follow the guidelines that I've outlined in this module, you should have a great case study worthy for submission for publication that adds to the evidence base of chiropractic care. So I do encourage you to write case studies, at least one throughout your practicing career, more if you can. As a researcher, they really do help us to justify doing higher level studies down the track. Now that's it for this module. So I encourage you to do the review questions for this class and also the questions for the overall module quiz, just to make sure that you've taken on board the key lessons that are important for this module.
I hope you've enjoyed this class. Please do keep going. There are many more classes available for you, and more courses are being developed and uploaded on an ongoing basis. And for those of you who are members of our online resource library at www.kairoshub.com, formerly www.therealitycheck.com, I also hope these classes will help you to get the most out of the resources available to you, so that together we can enlighten the world about the science of chiropractic and enable more people to get access to chiropractic care so that we one day can see a world of people expressing their optimal potential. I want to thank you for being part of this vision. We literally provide an entire library full of resources that you will need to effectively communicate the science of chiropractic to your current and to potential practice members. These resources are also a great way for your CAs or your techs to learn from and to help them answer questions from the public about the benefits of chiropractic care. They really can save you an awful lot of training time. If you're not yet part of this large group of chiropractors who choose to practice in a patient-centered, evidence-informed way, who enlighten their practice members about the science of chiropractic, as well as share their own clinical experience, please do join us at kairoshub.com and get access to well over 80 public whiteboard animations grouped into relevant topics that you can use as waiting room videos in your office. You can embed them in your website, and you can email them out, the links to these, to your entire patient list, one at a time. They are the best way to communicate the science of chiropractic in a public-friendly manner. Along with these whiteboard animations, there's a wealth of reference social media content. We have resized images for you so you can use them as screensavers or on Facebook or Instagram, as well as high-resolution A4 size or A3 size posters, so if you wanted to print them out. And these social media digital assets, like many of our whiteboard animations, are also available in up to 8 different languages, with many more on the way. We also have downloadable written research summaries on all these different topics. Of course, they're fully referenced. Please do note, though, that these written summaries are only available for members to download and print. Many practices use these, they laminate them, which is a great idea. And finally, my new book is soon coming out, if it's not already published. So if you wish to read it, please visit www.secretsofthespine.com. Thank you. Stay safe and don't forget to help enlighten the world about the science of chiropractic.